I do have a tendency to be interested in small groups. My approach to things is like, I would love, okay, like most people think of having like a big newspaper, right? That everybody reads and everybody likes, and it's really popular and you make lots of money. I would much prefer to have a bunch of small newspapers that like spoke to smaller communities and like, um, rather than one large newspaper that's just a general newspaper that talks about everything. You have a lot of specialized newspapers that like specialized people will buy into. And one of my specialized newspapers is my new blog, Carol Balizet cult.blogspot.com. Balizet is spelled Balizet. Balizet. Carol Balizet is her name, and you see her here on the screen. This is her picture here. So Carol Balizet, um, this is her. Carol Balizet was a nurse, and she wasn't just an anybody nurse. She was a pretty high ranking nurse and got really high up in the field and was like, head chief nurse or whatever they call them, or, you know, house resident nurse, things like that. She got big names. Well, after 30 years of practicing medicine, she turned against medicine and called it witchcraft. And she went on and she started a home birthing ministry. So these are Christian women that want to have their children at home outside of a hospital. And she turned it into a cult of being escaping the system and not having her children in the system. And but she said no medical help during these childbirths. And in her books, her most famous book, she wrote a few, which we're going to talk about, and we're going to be going into one of them today. In her most famous book, Born in Zion, not only does she say medicine is witchcraft, but she says that if you see something going wrong with the birth, don't contact the hospital because it's Satan trying to um, trick you. It's Satan trying to trick you. So people have died from Carol Balizet's teachings. Mothers giving birth have died. Um, Children have been medically neglected to death. So here are some of her books. I am looking to buy her books and review them all. I have some of them so far. You can donate on, there's a Patreon here you can donate to. But so her first most famous book is Born in Zion, and that's her famous one. And then she wrote two other nonfictions. One was Egypt or Zion, and the other one was Healing in Zion. Now, I have Egypt or Zion in full PDF up on the website. You can find it, carolbalizetcult.blogspot.com. Healing in Zion, I have about 80% of that. There's a PDF about 80%. Then she wrote some fiction, The Last 7 Years, Plague, The Face of the Enemy. When you come on here, you'll see there's not only her books, there's a link to her old website, which is on archive.org, where you can read all her writings. And then there's writings about her. So her granddaughter wrote about her, and who's now against her. Her granddaughter is an abortion activist. And she writes against her grandmother. And she's the one who brings up, the fact that her grandmother got a hip replacement, so she was a hypocrite. There was actually really a real cult called the Attleboro cult, or Attleboro sect, called the Body of Christ, and they followed her book Born in Zion, and two of their children died from medical neglect. There were movements. One of the mothers who died was in Australia, and that was part of the Quiverful movement. So there's other articles. There's a Slate magazine article on Carol Balizet and things like that. So yeah, so we talked about her yesterday, Claire, and you said that we should make a TV movie out of her, or a documentary or something.
Yes, we did.
Um yeah, her website is here. I'm going to be printing her articles, but her website is on archive. I'm going to go there right now. homeinzion.com used to be the name of her ministry, and she still has it there. And she does, if you go to her writings, if you go to her writings, which this might be taking too slow for me to go from, you will find she does have writings on, medicine being sorcery, a review and update on drugs. Uh, yeah, so she said that drugs were sorcery, and she held a special status for people who never took drugs at all. So anyway, I wanted to look a little bit into Egypt or Zion because actually this is probably this is her only book that I have a complete copy of. Again, if you'd like to donate to make sure that this, I'm going to be writing a book on her, and already I have this first resource up, but this is her book. I don't know which is the best book to start with. It's probably her most famous book, Born in Zion, but I don't have that yet, and it's $60, and I just don't want to spend that at the moment. Um, Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm actually not going to sit here and read this with you. I'm going to have to read this on my own. But actually, the thing, Claire, uh, well, first of all, I want to see how she writes. The one thing that I'm interested in doing is that, so she separates you from the world, right? Like a cult leader. She makes the world into this kind of like evil place, and she divides it into 7 systems. And it's like medicine, science, entertainment, banking, um, uh, all, like, she breaks it up into 7 systems of the world that you basically have to escape and get out of and live in total isolation away from. And as I already said, one of them includes medicine, and that's why people have died from her teachings. Um, Claire, do you think that you could like benefit from basically taking on this cue of, well, the world is fallen and you need, to escape into a cocoon and into a better place? Don't you think secular Quranism could be helped if you adopted some of Carol Balizet's teachings, or not teachings, but tactics?
Well, her tactic seems to be that of retreat. She's saying, can you list the 7 things again
Hold on, let
that
me
that she
see.
says we should flee from?
Let me find them.
Because I think they're quite important, really. Because when you said 7, the no hide laws, the 7 no hide laws, popped
Okay,
up in my head.
so they are government. Hold on, let me find them all. Where is it? Come on. Serious? Wait, this is. Hold on, hold on. I'm looking for a list. I don't want to have to. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Education, government, banking, religion, medicine, science, and entertainment.
Well, these are pretty important things to make us, well, any civilization go. I mean, imagine not having medical science or any entertainment or any religion. What was it again? I've forgotten.
Education, government, banking, religion, medicine, science, entertainment.
Well, I mean, these are pretty big areas of life. I mean, how are you supposed to run an economy without banking? How are you supposed to make people follow the rules without morality or religion? How are you supposed to, cure people when they're sick? I mean, it seems so crazy.
Well, the thing is that I didn't think she's well, okay, yeah, she's talking about absolutely like exiting these systems. But what if you had something to like replace them? Well, okay, you have a government replacing, you have a banking replacement, you don't have a religious replacement, you're fine with medicine, you're fine with science, and you would need an entertainment replacement.
Well, I just don't see how you can do with any of these things. I can give her the benefit of the doubt and say the people who control banking, education, religion, medicine, etc., are bad people, and we need to replace them with good people. That's as far as it goes, right? But you can't be saying, we should all run away to somewhere where there isn't any of those seven things that I just listed. That would be crazy.
Um,
Because it's not
but don't
practical, is it?
don't you think that both of us are lacking a sense of get out of the system and come into my little cove where you'll be protected? Don't you think that we're both missing something like that?
Well, I've heard of the Benedict option. Have you heard of the Benedict option?
What's a Benedict option?
Well, it's basically Pope Benedict saying, when the world around you is so bad and sad, you must retreat from it. And I'm saying, for a lot of people, retreat is not an option. Because it's everywhere. You go home, there's the internet, bringing the filth and immorality of the world into your home, to your room, to your mind. So there is no escape, and the only way to solve it is to tackle the problem at source. So if you're saying that the people who control banking, medicine, etc., are bad people, it's a matter of political activism to replace them or change the laws with regard to culture, entertainment, education, etc. I mean, surely that is what she means.
Okay, isolation is very important to creating group identity. So if you want to really affect people and actually get them to like really take on your teachings, you want to get rid of other influences. So you know, the thing is that secular Quranism doesn't really isolate you, does it? It doesn't. There is no secular Quranist culture. I mean, like, I don't hear you talk a lot about like clothing choice. Like when I was Jehovah's Witness, even men, they would lecture the men: don't wear pants that are too tight, don't wear shirts that are too tight, don't wear fancy like labels and things like that. And like even in like
That's quite Muslim.
well, yes. I mean, they have these kind of like things to separate you from the rest of the world, whether it's your clothing, whether it's your diet, whether it's your entertainment. Seventh Day Adventists, you're not allowed to go to theaters supposedly or see films or something like that. I forget which religion doesn't let you watch.
Okay, so there'll be restrictions. I mean, we can just go with the Jews because everybody knows what the Jews are supposed to do and not supposed to do. So, every group will have a group identity. I mean, even if you're, a gang of child prostitute, even if you're a child prostitution gang, you would have members, you would have an objective, to operate child prostitute. All these groups have an objective, a purpose, and their success would depend on how well they follow their rules, whether people want to join them, etc., etc. So from the lowest to the highest, there is this idea of the objective of the group, which is tied up with their purpose of the groups, with and its members who want to serve the purpose, and whether you can get people to keep joining your group to make it powerful and big, right? I
Yes,
mean,
but
this is.
we don't have anything spicy. Like we don't have any like rejection of anything mainstream. We don't have any special rules. We don't have like that kind of stuff. And I'm saying that like I think I was thinking of this last night. Like what if we made a package, a Claire Cole Carol Balizet package where okay, so secular Quranism takes care of your legal matters, but then you need spiritual nourishment too, right?
Yeah, I'm saying it's closest to Islam, and if you like the idea of secular Quranism, you'll move towards Islam, and not towards say Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, but Judaism is kind of like Islam, so with the same belief about the God who created the universe, who knows our hearts and minds, who can do anything, and that sort of thing. So I'm basically saying, look, it doesn't matter who you are. You obviously, as any individual, because the whole point of life is now which group shall I join. So it starts from very young when you're at school. It's like, well, which group of friends should I cultivate? So, and then as we leave school, it's about which club to join, which political party to join, which religious group to join if we're going to leave the one that we inherited from our parents, and so on and so forth. Which gym, which golf club, which country club, social club, everything. So, we have to acknowledge the supremacy of religious groups because they are the most powerful human groups in the whole wide world, and that's how we progress. Isn't that and how we become successful socially, and the people who don't get it, there will be marginalized groups. Everybody ignores what they say because they think they're mad or evil or stupid, and then we don't get what we want in life.
My thing is, I'm fascinated by people like this because I think her message is so much crazier than ours, yet she got a following that's bigger than ours. And, like,
So we must read her book because I mean that was what I was hoping you would do. It's like I found the choicest passages of her book, and I thought that was kind of what you sent me the link, but I didn't have the time to read it,
no,
and
I'm going to read it and I'll post about it. I just don't want to read. I don't want to. Well, we can read. Let's see if we can. Let's look at it. Let's see if we can
oh,
find
well,
something.
I mean, reading the seven. I mean, I can take over if you want, if you get tired. But giving her giving the reasons for the seven things that she says we must flee from would be a start, wouldn't it? Which book is that from? Zionism and Egypt. That one.
Egypt or Zion. I'm in it now. Let's go to. Okay, let's go to the seven systems. Let's see how long that is. Um, the seven systems. So it gives them. So there's government. The system meets our needs to be covered by authority, to be protected, to be part of a society, a tribe, a people. The covenant name of God, which embodies this promise, is Jehovah Nisi. I am Lord, thy banner. Banners were used in ancient times to designate different nations, or even more specifically to indicate particular tribes. During warfare, soldiers rallied to their particular banner. Today's parallel would be flags for nations and for divisions within nations like our states. Jehovah tells us that he is our banner. We belong to his nation, his tribe. He is the rallying place in time of danger or war. America's government is based on in a constitution. Christian government is based in a being. This being, since he is God, is not um this being, since he is God, is not a representative, not an elected official. He is an absolute monarch. He is also commander in chief. Hold on. Oh. He is also commander in chief of the military, the armed services, The armed services are his provisions for our protection in the natural realm. He endorses the military for national security, and we have police officers on all levels to protect and serve to keep people within the national borders. We need to be governed. We are selfish, poorly controlled beings. Without some acknowledged authority over us, anarchy and chaos will reign. So God ordained that some form of government should regulate society. The ancient nation of Israel, which was ruled by kings who were basically autocrats, although the one world government is just around the corner, at this point we are still citizens of a sovereign nation, and the crowd in Washington is what most of us think of as our government. Some nations today are ruled by dictators, but in what is called Western civilization, there is usually a more representative form of government. We are familiar with democratic rules. For example, America is a republic, and our experience is those who rule over us do so with our consent. And of course, one hallmark of Americans is the gut level conviction that we have rights. The most telling political difference in our country stems from the question about how much control government should exert over our individual lives. Reading from left to right, the political wheel places individual lives, places us as communists, socialists, liberals, moderates, conservatives, reactionaries, libertarians, and such. Based on this one issue, how much government do we advocate? The farther to the left we move, the more government control we support, and we move farther to the right as we increasingly oppose government control. Well, let me find something juicy. Coin and print money. So it's taking up the gut. So basically, she's talking about the federal government taking up lots. This is the only one of the 7 systems to which we as Christians must submit. Okay, so she's saying you must submit to government. It is God's will and his plan that we be governed, but the system is easily corrupted, and therefore we are admonished in scripture to pray for those in authority. We must pray for our government leaders that God will manifest his will through secular authority. Okay, well, she's waiting for secular authority to do what's right, right? Or at least praying for secular authority to do what's right, which sounds like not very effective.
Well, exactly, and it seems like she's trying to create her own religion, and what you're interested in is why so many people believed in her. And before all this, you were saying that anybody can create their own religion, they just have to have a list of do's and don'ts. That's how religions are created. That was how, well, Judaism was created, with the Ten Commandments, and over the centuries they fleshed it out with the Talmud and Mishnah and all that.
The satanic strongman over the system is called Caesar, and throughout history, men and rules have taken its place: Caesar, Czar, Kaiser, etc. Just as Jesus instructed the people of his day, we still have an obligation to render to Caesar the things that belong to him. But if Caesar's law requires our disobeying God, then our allegiance to God must prevail. She sounds very much like a Jehovah's Witness. She uses the word Jehovah. I think she's against blood transfusions. This idea of obeying the government unless they tell you to do what God tells you not to do. Being loyal, not to a fault though, but being loyal as far as you have to be, but only because you have to be.
Yes, perhaps she was a Jehovah's Witness.
She came out of Pentecostalism, which has some similarities. The Israelites offered God when they insisted upon a king to reign over them, but even so, he gave them Saul. But the things displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." And never again was God truly free to exercise his sovereignty over that nation, even when godly kings reigned. The desire for human authority between us and God is natural to human nature, and we see it today when many people expect government to fulfill various functions of God. When people don't have God as ruler of their lives, then they demand that government supply all their needs, answer all their requests, solve all their problems, support them, be their source of truth, provide for their healing. The far left, radically liberal political position is at the root a religion, in my opinion. The people who depend on government for having their needs met have actually made the state their God. It has become an idol or antichrist, and it is doomed to failure. Okay, then she starts talking about AIDS victims screaming to the government like it's God, looking for heroes and cures and
Did
stuff.
you know when she wrote the book?
Hold on. No, but probably.
Oh,
Oh,
1993.
1999 was the 1999 is the updated second uh edition. So she probably wrote it a little bit earlier than 1999, the first edition.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I sort of think that you might have been saying something important before I interrupted you by asking you when she wrote her book.
1999. Okay, coming out of Egypt and going into Zion government. Because we're commanded to submit to the law of man, this is the one system we must stay in as long as possible. I realize the current government is not holy, but nowhere is there an exemption clause in God's dictate. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resisteth shall receive to themselves damnation. Romans 13, 1, 2. We submit whether the powers that be over us are godly or not. I realize that this ordinance applies to all those in authority, husbands, parents, employers, etc. But for this writing, we will limit it to government. So, okay, so she's not advocating rebellion, right? Claire?
No, no, sorry, I was muted. No.
She's not advocating rebellion, but I mean, you're saying that, I mean, you would be against this because you're saying that we actually need to replace the system and put in something more godly rather than just accepting it and tolerating it and trying to fix things with our own personal lives.
Yeah, because I believe that the culture will always be wrong if the laws are wrong, and the laws will always be wrong if the moral system is wrong, and all the five world religions that we have heard of, the successful ones, I suppose, the top five in over history and time, is well, the three Abrahamic religions and Hinduism and Buddhism, and if you're choosing the most powerful religion, there seems to be an obvious rule to choosing it, such as, oh, we have to worship the most powerful god, and that would be logically true. I mean, why would you choose any weaker god? Because the people with the more powerful god will say, "Oh, right, we have the more powerful god, so we win and you lose." The argument, anyway. And I think fundamentally this is what the Trinity was all about. The Trinity was cooked up by these people who said, we can't have these Jews telling us that their Yahweh, their tetragrammaton is more powerful than our, crucified Christ. So we have to insist that Jesus is the co-equal of the Abrahamic God. And we don't care how we get there. We're just going to, forbid anyone from questioning this. And this is how it's going to be. And if they're going to question it, we're going to burn them at the stake. So, they better watch their P's and Q's. And this worked until recently.
Actually, I was reading on her website. Do you know that she denied the Trinity?
Oh.
Yes, and she said you don't need to go through you don't need to go through um you don't need to go through Jesus. And basically I have to find that quote from her.
Oh, you must now. That's
See if I
really
can find
piqued
it.
my interest.
Let me see if I can find it because she was anti-Trinitarian. Hold on. Where was it? Come on, give me 1 second. Let me just look for, because she said that you don't need an intermediary. I have to find that on her website, but I did. Um, anyway, she did say something about the Trinity, and
Great.
I wish I could. I wish I could search this website.
Well, there's a word search
There's no, because
facility.
this is on archive.org. Her website is now out. Um,
I suppose
her
you can cut and paste what she wrote and then word search it in a document or something.
Yeah, I'm looking for that. I will find it once I find it. I will send it to you. But anyway, now she's getting into. She starts talking about how she's against activism because she says that Jesus and the apostles didn't work to overthrow the government, right? They weren't working to overthrow the government or to even change the government. I mean, she says, another aspect of the relationship to the system of government concerns the efforts of many Christians to change government by political activism. I see two problems with this. First, she goes into what Jesus didn't do it, uh, political activism. Second, focuses
Well,
on
he tried
force.
to be a political activist, but he got executed, right? I mean, that was
Well,
what
he
he was
wasn't
trying to
talking
do.
about like changing the government, was he?
Well, we know that there was something political about what he was trying to do, and the Pharisees tried to get him into trouble by asking him, what was it? When he said, "Oh, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." So pay your taxes. So they were, it was obviously political. I mean, overturning the tables of the money lenders. That's about banning usury. The Muslims claim Jesus as one of the prophets of God, and that. I think he was saying to Jews, well, you shouldn't be breaking your own rules.
Well, I'm reading this. I think I can see where she's going wrong because she's going against political activism because it's all sight realm point of view and it's about changing circumstances and society rather than to change hearts by the work of the indwelling Christ. Um, that sounds weak to me.
I think maybe she doesn't want to start a political party. She didn't want to start a political party, and she didn't want any of her supporters to waste their time doing that. Maybe she just wanted her supporters to worship her, or do what she wants rather than start a political party.
Right? The problem doesn't originate within our society, it originates within us. This sounds like America would work if everyone was a good Christian kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Well, America used to work when everyone was a good Christian.
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately, it's about, well, do you have the right beliefs? And
But
even
belief,
Jews.
that's the thing about Christianity. It's not about, well, right. It's not, but no, Christianity, the thing is that Alan Cecil brings this up over and over again. Judaism is not about right belief, it's about right action. It's about doing what you're supposed to do. It's less about believing the right thing and more doing the right thing. Whereas Christianity is more about believing the right thing, having the correct belief, whereas the action doesn't matter.
Well, okay, here is my understanding of how these religions work. Um, for Jews and Muslims, Jews and Muslims are not going to ask each other, other Jews and other Muslims, like, oh, do you really believe in God? They will just assume that the others believe if they practice it, and that is a good enough sign. But you can go even higher, on a higher level than that. Like, oh, do you really believe? And that means causing embarrassment, causing division, and and so people avoid asking each other these questions. But when you find that a lot of these heresies, they are about right belief. It's like, okay, the Socinian controversy was about some Christians in Poland saying, well, we're not really sure about this Trinity thing. Why can't we just believe in God and, think of Jesus as mortal? And the Catholic Church, had a view on it. So ultimately, it is important, and from a very practical point of view, would be, when a Jew asks another Jew or a Muslim asks another Jew if they really believe it, it's like, well, would you still do it if you thought you could get away with it? Because if you really did believe that God exists to punish good and evil and knows our hearts and minds, and then you wouldn't do it, even if you thought you could get away with it in this life. You would, because your mind would be centered on, great, this is an opportunity for me to resist temptation, and this means I'm more likely to get to heaven, when I'm dead. It's this sort of idea. But if you didn't really believe, you think, oh, nobody's looking, I'll steal, I'll murder, I'll, rape or whatever. So, belief is important ultimately, but maybe for practical reasons we don't want to be questioning each other's true beliefs, because we don't want to be arguing with mum and dad and our colleagues and our juniors. Because
Um,
actually, I find it, a lot of people, say, "Oh, don't you know, Claire? It's not the done thing to ask people if they believe in God. You know, it's none of your business." That would be, one of the reasons why people resent it. But I mean, I only ask people these questions, to create create a chain of logic that says, if you believe in XYZ, then you would do ABC. And they, like, maybe they know, that's what I'm trying to do, and they want to, head me off at the pass and say, no, I'm not going to answer your question, because I don't want you to say that if I believe in XYZ, I have to do ABC.
okay, let's move on. We've done government. So the thing about government is the one that we have to accept. So now we're moving into religion, which we don't have to accept. She's basically starts this out by saying usual tongue, the usual, the church, the church is the harlot and all this other kind of stuff. Um, is just try to be good or as demanding as sacrifice your firstborn son. Okay. Um, hold on. Let's look. Okay, the religious system had its okay, it was started in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That became bondage to religious spirits. Lucifer himself probably had authority in the sphere of worship, and the desire of his twisted hearts is to replace God and to be worshipped. Two scriptures that make this point. Okay, so basically, she now, well, what is this is? I mean, this is the thing. Whenever you say that religion is bad, but then she's obviously almost starting a religion, right? I mean, this is a systematized. She's giving you seven abstinences, right? Seven things to abstain from. So how is this not a religious system?
Yeah, she is a cult, isn't she? I mean, she was starting a cult. She was a cult leader, as you were saying yesterday.
Um. Okay. Okay. So Jesus. Okay. Things like church attendance, dress code, minimum standards of prayer and Bible reading, commitment to a particular denomination of a church body, or any number of any other man-made rules get in the way of people getting, to Jesus. Though she does talk about dress and not wearing men not wearing females' clothes and females not wearing male clothes. But I mean, she takes it to the point of saying, like, jeans and tennis shoes bring down, destroy the separation between the sexes when it comes to dress and stuff like that. So
It's very Old Testament.
she is very I think she's a little bit hypocritical. Um, Hold on. Now she's talking about coming out of it. I want to see what she says. Well, so anyway, she's, well, there.
Yes?
Okay, you are there. I thought you disappeared for a second.
No, I muted myself.
Well, the thing is that you're saying if you need spirituality, just go to the mosque is what your whole thing is.
Well, no, I mean, okay, we have to define spirituality, and I define spirituality as the desire for justice. So even atheists have this desire for justice. They just have a different, idea of how to get it. So I would say, that's how that's what we want to make us feel, happy, safe, and good. We want to feel safe because we are good, and if we are good, we think God will protect us, or something will.
I think you would get somewhere if you incorporated into your jargon that all of Pebble Muncher's in here, but I don't know if I should let him in. Anyway, what was I saying? I mean, what if you said, well, and you do say this, well, all the Islamic sects are corrupted, they use the Hadith, they use extra Quranic texts, they're full of nonsense. The reason that there's so many problems in the Muslim world is because they don't actually just follow the Quran. They have all these additions. So why don't you kind of start your own, get out of the Islamic system and come into, pure secular Quranism.
Well, I'm okay. Secular Quranism is meant to be a hybrid moral and legal system. So it's there to make the Muslims think, yes, I'm finally adopting our ideas at last, and it's secular. So people who are atheists and agnostics can sort of be attracted to it, because it's saying, well, you don't have to believe in God to understand that you need a moral system to define your group, whatever it is. And we're talking about your country now. And it is a problem when you don't have a moral system for your ruling classes to stick to, because if Congress says, well, we can make up any law that we want and repeal any law we want, Congress is in effect saying we have the power of an absolute monarch over you, American citizens. And maybe if Congress say that, American citizens would say, oh, hey, but aren't we a republic? And who are you to have, absolute power over us in our republic? That's what I'm trying to do. But nobody cares about the meaning of words.
Well, I think, look, the thing what I'm trying to bring up, and Baron Mebble Puncher, I think you're a Pebble Muncher, and I'm not letting you on because you're just going to use curse words and get my stream taken down. So I'm not letting you in because I know that you're not coming in here in good faith, and you're just coming here to ruin my stream, and I'm not letting you on.
And we have so much to discuss anyway. We don't need a third party, do we?
No, and he's not coming here in good faith. He's not coming here for a nice conversation. He's coming here to ruin the stream and be an asshole. No, but I don't think you understand that. Look, your biggest competition is Islam, right? I mean, the Muslims are just going to say, well, why not just Islam? So I think that you need, like Carol Balizet, you need Islam is corrupted, and it's,
Yeah, that's what I do say. I'm saying the Hadith is what Muslims prefer, even though it's only logically and necessarily the secondary source of of God's word, because Islam remains the primary source of God's word, right? It's the actual revealed word of God in Arabic. I mean, that's what the Muslims believe themselves. But they're saying the Hadith, it's all how we started to do it and how we did it over the centuries, and we need to look at the traditions, etc. And I'm saying, well, some of it is wrong, and a lot of it is hateful to Westerners. But Westerners can start their own legal tradition as regards their interpretation of the Quran, and that's all I'm saying.
Well, I think that you need to be a little bit more biting about it, like Carol Balizet, the type of Christian who says all Christian denominations are evil, and the only way is for you to live this kind of pure way of life. And I mean, you could come out and say all Islamic sects are evil because they all rely on the Hadith and they, go past the Quran and make up these horrible types of things. And you can say, well, if you really want to correct the world, you have to leave the Islamic system and come into secular Quranism.
I mean, I'm saying the ideal way to run the Quranic principles of governance, the ideal way of operating it is to have a one-party theocracy. So every country who decides to do it will have, the American system of Quranic interpretation, and the French, the Irish, whoever adopts it will have their own system. So it's universal in that people look at the same set of laws, but they will have their own interpretation of it, and it's the only way to sell it for them, because no single sect is powerful enough to say, we've done it completely right, because the Sunnis can't say that, and the Shias can't say that either. So, I mean, the only way we can kind of agree to disagree is like we all do it in our own way, and God will, if He exists, bless the country that most correctly follows these, the Quranic principles of governance.
Okay, here she has this weak thing here, but I mean, you could also steal this, and that says, okay, she's saying, I'm not advocating an exodus from organized religion. I am merely encouraging all of us to be sure we don't stop there. We must move beyond the structure, denomination, building, hierarchy, programs, organization, traditions, into Him, into Jesus Christ, whom to know is life eternal. So, you can, that's a cop out. I mean, either get out of organized religion or don't. But I mean, you could use her cop out thing where you could say, well, I'm not telling you to leave Islam, but just it has to focus on the Quran, and rather than all this other kind of nonsense, which is a weak way of, I mean, that's a half-assed way of promoting that ideal of getting out of Islam and joining secular Quranism. But if you felt as though you weren't powerful enough to just say, get out of Islam, then you could use this kind of, her kind of logic. I really think you could pick up some things from this woman.
Yes, thank you. I mean, to a Muslim, it's like secular Quranism helps you be a better Muslim. Because it won't be promoting all the things that Muslims would object to, like a culture of casual sex and no fault divorce, etc. So Muslims, if they were being logical and understanding what I'm saying, they would have to support secular Quranism. But I know why they don't do that. They don't do that because they're scared, right? Everybody hates secular Quranism, particularly the liberal Western establishment, and they don't want to be accused of being, extremist and radical, and getting a call from, the security services. So that's why they won't do it. So I don't think it and if they were given
okay,
the
I
permit.
want to say something. All the people in the alt-right and Muslims do the same thing, and it's an excuse to do nothing. This idea that every little thing that you do, that the Secret Service is going to come pick you up, is absurd. Okay, I preach really outlandish things, and no government official has ever come to my house. No government official has ever contacted me ever. And there are plenty of Muslims who are out there who are spreading the most radical of messages, and they never get government calls. The idea that the government is going to care if you go out on on a corner and hand out a leaflet that says not to have premarital sex, like it's ridiculous. This fear of the FBI and the feds, and it's a paranoia.
Well, people do complain. Do you know Andy Nowicki?
No.
He's supposed to be alt-right and Catholic, and he said he got a call from the FBI. So maybe you are protected because you're gay, or nobody, you don't have a big enough following for the security services to take any action against you. But I guess Andy Nowicki would be put under the heading of a domestic terrorist, or domestic extremist or something.
Well, what is he
And I don't.
saying? No, no, he must be saying more than stop the culture of casual sex. He must be saying something more dangerous than that.
Well, he's associated with the alt-right, so
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
that's
But I mean,
enough.
any Muslim who went out there and handed out pamphlets saying "Don't have casual sex" is not going to get a visit from Secret Service.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think even Daniel Haqiqatjou is saying Americans must adopt Sharia. But I don't know if you saw this tweet from Laura Loomer, and she's referring to this article in Salon. And the title is MAGA and Christian Nationalism, Bigger Threat to America Than Hamas Could Ever Be. So
Laura
maybe,
Loomer posted this.
yeah, she's saying that Salon wrote that. And, isn't it terrible that, you know, that they're now saying that Trump is more of a threat than Hamas? I mean, we could read that article, couldn't we? I mean, just to digest it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I mean,
There it is, six
you know,
days ago.
it depends. It depends on how you say these things too, and in what tone you say it, and where you say it. There's a way. There's a way to come out and say, "Hey, I believe in conservative social values, and I do believe in changing the government." There's a way to say things and not get in trouble. There's a way to say, "I'm a Muslim who believes in bringing Sharia to America without getting a call from the cops."
Yeah, yeah. And I think, maybe we understand it better than, these brain dead, nationalists. But anyway, I posted the article in the private chat if you want to have a look at it.
Hold on.
Far right MAGA theocrats, most dangerous threat to America.
Okay, when was this written? I'm looking for a date on this. Oh, November 2nd. Okay. Well, I mean, they are a big danger. They are. I mean, to say that Hamas isn't a danger, or to downplay the danger of Hamas, or to compare them, it's not fair to compare apples and oranges. One is kind of like a political movement. One is a terrorist organization. It's not like one is more dangerous than the other. They have different, you know, things going on.
But I think white men are being targeted because they are the biggest group capable of taking action to challenge and defeat the matriarchy.
Not at this point. Not at this point. Maybe they were, but the matriarchy got them bad. I mean, they're in a bad place now. First of all, I mean, these men are not fighting men. All these men that are against the matriarchy, they're gamers. They're not. They don't like. They're not fighters. They're not warriors. They're not. You know what I mean? They're internet junkies. They're not like that's all that's left. There is no like man's man out with a gun doing, that doesn't exist anymore. These all these men, all they do is talk about gays and gays and gays and gays. They're not like manly men. These men in the alt right aren't manly men. They don't have like back breaking jobs. They're not like foresters. They're not in the military. Most of them. It's like most of them are they just live in their home alone. All of their friends are online. What are they going to do? And at this point, it's just revenge. At this point, it's just like intellectually giving them a hard time and making them feel like shit about themselves. At this point, It's not so much like, oh my God, all these alt right men are going to rise up and take over the country. No, they're not.
Well, but perhaps the matriarchy is afraid of its own shadow because it can't win any argument. That's why it's censoring everything. That's why it's refusing to answer questions and telling people, other liberals to not even engage with people because they'll probably be creating an offence of guilt by association soon, because I mean that's the next step that they will take. You spoke to those people, therefore you agree with them, and you're going to get punished with the rest of them, right? I mean that will be the next step.
Well, it's not, they don't censor everything. I think that they censor a certain degree of, like, they don't want certain ideas to get too big. I mean, then they usually hone in on those ideas. Though, even with AI, AI is against everything. AI is like, misproper. Nothing is, just total 100% misproper liberal. Where it's like, but there is a certain degree of censorship. There is, but at least they do things. At least liberals go out in crowds and large crowds of people and liberals go out in crowds with guns more often than these alt-right guys do. And they actually aren't in part of the government, and they've invaded the government, and they have officials elected in the government. The alt-right has no government official working for them.
Well, that's the thing, that they are, as Luke Ford says, marginalised people in a marginalised movement, and nobody will support them because they're, the traditional male structure of organisation is all but gone. They don't even have a leader that they can trust. I mean, other than Trump, and I guess they're going to jail him and maybe kill him, and nobody's going to even defend him properly. He can't get lawyers to defend him because they've decided, well, Project 65, I think it's called, have decided to threaten all lawyers prepared to defend Trump and his supporters. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't, but it just shows, like, I got so sick. I got sick to my stomach. This guy, oh God, what was his name? Ellie Harmon. What's his name? Ellie Harmon? Do you know who Ellie Harmon is?
No.
I think his name was Ellie Harmon. He was kind of like a big name in the alt-right, at least a ship. No, he wasn't a ship poster. He actually posted serious stuff. But, like, his whole, like, okay, he posted this video that was, like, supposedly like the white man's revenge or something like that, and it shows the single white guy all by himself with a Confederate flag walking down the street, and somebody's videotaping him, talking to him. He's like, I don't want to talk to you, you're trying to upset me. It was someone who was filming him who was against him. And then in the distance, there's all these like Black and Latino Antifa members. So he starts like flying the flag and going, Antifa, Antifa scum. And then all the Antifa start come running. And then he drops the flag and runs. And the video just shows him running with all these people running after him and like him running away. And this was like their whole big, look how victorious we are. Yo, we really showed them. It was one guy that ran away from a bunch of Black and Latino people. Like, this is your big comeback. This is your big hurrah. Like, this is supposed to scare people.
But that is the thing. So we were talking earlier about beliefs. So the whole point of this belief system that you will be rewarded in the afterlife, if you're good, is to make people do the right thing, or they'll just be so easy to bribe and threaten. So, the presumption is that some people will have to die to defend their principles and their territory and their women and their property and whatever they're supposed to defend. Some of you are going to have to die, but you will be rewarded. I mean, that's basically the belief system that, I guess rational, civilizations with a long track record of having existed used to believe. It's like, yeah, it's too bad. Some of us will have to die or put up with, with the burden of being married parents and whatever. And yeah, most of us would really, be gay and go from girl to girl and have sex with them and never pay for their babies or even live with them. Yes, that's what we'd like to do. And I guess Westerners have tried doing that for about 50 years, and that's why their civilization is collapsing.
Well, I don't really. I'm not scared of dissident alt right white men taking
Yeah,
over.
because they won't do the thing that they need to do. They won't even acknowledge the fact that if they had been their ancestors, or if they lived around the time when they were supposed to make the Atlantic crossing, they never would have come. They just stay in Europe complaining because it would be too scary, right? Be too scary to go on a really uncomfortable ship and sell yourself into slavery or
Well,
indentured
they're not willing to
servitude.
sacrifice anything. They've had it too good for too long, and you know what? Everyone can play. Like they have comfortable lives, even if they don't have great jobs. They still have their parents' house. They still have their video games. They still have their Coca-Cola, and what? Why would they give all that up for uncertainty? First of all, and not just uncertainty, but bad camaraderie, and that when these men do try to get together to do something, they treat each other like shit. They fail each other. They're just not reliable companions to each other.
That's right. And so, therein lies the purpose of religion. It's all about, thou shalt not commit adultery, bear false witness. I mean, all these things would be horrible if it was done to you. If your, comrade, had sex with your wife and wanted all the stuff you wanted and lied about you to get you into trouble and all that. So I guess Jews were the people who understood that good and early, and they kind of distilled the rules into 10 commandments, so even the stupid people can remember what the hell it is that they're not supposed to do, or supposed to do to or for each other. So it's kind of codified morality that people can remember. And the no-height laws, it's like, okay, that's for Gentiles because, they can't do the 10 because they're a bit, weak or something. And, but Christianity doesn't have it. I mean, they claim it's, that their morality is the 10 commandments, but they fail with the first two, which is a prohibition against idolatry and blasphemy. And they have so far successfully ignored all the questions of, oh, but hey, isn't Christianity idolatry and blasphemy? They managed to censor anyone asking them, by executing them, or now, since they can't kill anyone anymore, they're just going to pretend not to hear. Like, how is Christianity not idolatry? And if you really believe in God, don't you think he's going to punish all these idolaters and blasphemers? And even if God doesn't exist, don't you owe it to yourself to find out if it's really idolatry? What you and your ancestors have been practicing for so many centuries. They can't they can't even process these questions.
I don't think they want to process that question. I don't think the average man in the alt-right even wants to think about what idolatry is. I don't think he cares about what idolatry is. I don't think that he cares about anything. I don't even think he cares about what the New Testament really says. You know what I mean? They're not, and that's the thing about, everyone, people got mad because there was a child's textbook in one of the schools, and it said that in the textbook it said that Muslims tend to take their faith more seriously than other people do, and everyone got mad about that, but it's true. And like all these alt-right men, Muslims actually generally tend to take their religion seriously, whereas alt-right men, they don't really want to talk about religion that much. They don't want to sit around talking about the Bible all day. How often do you hear them talking about the Bible? Never. How often do you hear them making cogent like intellectual arguments about the Bible. Never. How often do you even hear them trying to defend themselves against the Trinity? I mean, against the accusation of idolatry. They don't even care that they're called idolaters. They don't even want to look into the question of idolatry. They don't even know what idolatry is.
Well, that's the thing. So even if you went right to the top, to the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury, you will notice a certain reluctance to engage on these issues because they already know they have no answer. I mean, I've already tried, talking to these Christians who go to church and who are known as Christian theologians. They don't want to talk about it either, and and this makes me think that white people who claim to be Christian only see Christianity as lifetime membership to being white and middle class. I mean that's the only purpose Christianity is for them.
Yes, it's a social status, and it's like, way of life. Like, what's her name? Ann Coulter said Christian destiny is night skiing, jet skiing, shrimp on the barbecue. Um, you know, basically, yeah, that Christian destiny is this like upper middle class lifestyle of entertainment. And how shallow is that?
Yeah, and it's gone. You know,
Yeah,
it,
it is gone, and
was supremacy. Well, I don't know, but when did anybody talk about? Okay, I'm just old enough to remember people talking about white supremacy. They don't talk about it now because they know it doesn't exist. Because I think war supremacy is all to do with the Americans winning the Spanish-American War. When they kicked out all the Catholics, from, well, the Americas, or at least let them know who was boss. So technically, it's the Anglican Church who is supposed to be the most powerful church because it's the faith of the Anglo-Saxons who command the most territory. In that, there's America and Europe and Australasia. So I think even if the British don't feel it, technically their church is the one that represents the widest expanse of Christian territory, if you want to call it that. Christian imperial territory.
I started moving into education here. Let's see what she has to say about education. I skipped some of this stuff about let me look through this. So basically this is just turning to Jesus and the Bible for natural understanding of the world, which um whatever, education's getting better. In every one of the 7 systems, those in authority presume a superiority and expertise about how to live, raise children, become and or stay healthy, handle money, face old age, relate to each other and the world, and most significantly, how to form opinions about right and wrong. Tree of knowledge. So she's comparing this to, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. She's criticizing Time magazine for saying brothers and sisters who are in abusive relationships with each other, they should try to understand each other, which, what does she recommend? Okay. Well, education seems a little bit boring. So anyway, she's saying it looks like basically what she's saying is that education outside the Bible really sucks, and that So then science, I guess, would be the same thing as medicine, but why is she science's influences pandemic. Its opinions and point of view affect all the world and much of the church. There is an infinite difference in the foundation of life, with science espouses the life of evolution and the biblical statement. Yeah, so she's anti-evolution. I mean, I don't know how much science you're gonna have to oppose, Claire. I don't know what degree of science you're gonna have to.
I don't have to oppose any science at all because
What
basically,
about evolution?
um, I, I mean, I don't actually want to address evolution. People who, I mean, Darwin believed in God, even though he was the one who, founded, I mean, discovered all these, interesting things that suggested that we were once apes. But in terms of the universe and how it was created, you could actually argue that theists are in a better position to answer the question of what caused the Big Bang than scientists, because scientists will just have to say we're not really sure, we just know it happened, and theists would just say, we know that God caused the Big Bang, which was an act of creation.
Let me go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
And so I think theists actually have all the answers. And once upon a time, the Muslims actually were the astronomers and the doctors and the physicists and all that who didn't have to be punished by the Catholic Church for saying that the world goes round the sun, the earth goes round the sun, rather than the other way around. I'm thinking of Copernicus and Galileo. I'm assuming that the Catholic Church didn't want to acknowledge that they had got geocentrism wrong, because they didn't want to open a whole can of worms of Christians asking themselves, what else the Catholic Church got wrong, apart from, the fact that the earth goes round the sun rather than the other way round. So, this explains a lot of the repression of the Catholic Church, because it was really a made-up religion. And also we know that pontifex is the Latin term of the chief priest of Rome before Rome was Christianized. So they didn't even bother changing the Latin title for the Pope, because the whole idea of a chief priest was to be master of ceremonies of whatever the religion of the state was.
Yes, I'm gonna walk away again in a second. But okay, so you're not going to, well, obviously, what about COVID science? I mean, what do you have to say about that? Aren't you going to kind of have something to say about that?
Well, I think COVID, you still can't really convince people one way or the other. So all you can say is that if our governments were having the right set of beliefs, they would think, well, we're all going to die anyway. Those of us who are good will be rewarded, and and if they're good, they could regard dying of COVID as the fast track to heaven. And this I say because there was some doctor who said something similar during the time of the bubonic plague, because when everybody was dying and they were all supposed to believe in God, and then some philosopher or doctor was going to say, well, look on the bright side of dying of the bubonic plague. I mean, think of it as just being on the fast track to the better place in the afterlife. And if you have that sort of attitude, you wouldn't have closed your economy down over what was really a bitter flu. You wouldn't have destroyed your economy or borrowed lots of money in order to be beholden to the World Bank. You wouldn't have done all those stupid things because you were afraid of the American empire, or the American government was afraid of whoever they're supposed to be afraid of, and they just they just did the wrong thing. And now they're going to be trying to cover their tracks by being ever more repressive about what we can or can't say.
I'll be right back. 1 second.
Sure. And so I'm actually saying that even if you don't believe in God, this moral system gives you the mechanism to solve your problems, your political, moral, social, and economic problems by imposing on this belief that suffering is punishment for sin, which is actually a belief common to Buddhism and Hinduism, who are supposed to believe in reincarnation, and they have the idea that if you led a really bad previous life, then your current life would be terrible, but you should still regard your terrible life that may be the consequence of being a terrible person in your previous lives as an opportunity to prove yourself and show that you have learned your lesson, and then the next life, if you act correctly in this life and know the difference between good and evil and choose accordingly, you will have a better next life. So the systems of belief, if taken seriously, would have the effect of making the world a better place. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think that. Well, I'm just saying that part of your program. I mean, so she identified 7 problems, 7 systems that need to be reformed. I think it would help secular Quranism if you did a broader but also deeper attack on society. So, I mean, if you said these systems need to be reformed and you pointed out how wrong they are and everything they're doing wrong and why they're wrong and what the alternative is, and like some of those alternatives could be things that you just like she said, drop out of the system to a certain degree.
Yeah, because people will say, oh, you can't fight the system, you're only one person, and I'm basically saying that explaining my failure to get more support generally in a way reinforces my position about how the usual mechanism for problem solving is all not working. All the teeth and wheels and cogs of the machinery for problem solving has been destroyed. All the teeth have fallen out. So one wheel would be spinning on its own and not affecting any of the other wheels in this mechanism that is supposed to solve the problem. Because if you look at how it's supposed to be solved, I mean, the idea is that, well, God is above us, and God is above even the most powerful empire in the world, because God knows best, etc., etc. And then it is through appealing to the person or the individual or the entity above your oppressor that you invoke the necessary forces that can solve your problem. So what I've noticed with this Hamas-Israel war is that nobody, none of the Jews, none of the Muslims ever say, oh, which one of us would God, if he exists, support Jews, or would he support Muslims? They don't even ask themselves that question. All they're trying to do is to say Jews are, worse people than Muslims because they don't care about the children and the women being bombed to death, and Jews say, oh, but Muslims are so horrible because they whatever they do, and the thing is, they don't even know that if you're a non-Muslim Gentile, you don't really care. Most non-Muslim Gentiles I know who just can't make up their minds whether they hate Jews or Muslims more. So, to the extent that they care, they'll just use dead Jews to throw at Muslims. If they're Islamophobes and if they're anti-Semites, they'll be throwing dead Muslims at the Jews that they hate. And it's not going to get anyone anywhere. And I think, really, the problem can be solved most easily and peacefully through a theological discussion about who God would support if he exists. Do you have any views on how on what God, if he exists, might support?
Well, I mean, Hamas is more backward, and God seems to like what's backward. So, I mean, if anyone, look, the Muslims are more serious about God than the Jews are. Well, that's changing. I mean, we can't just now say all Jews are secular atheists anymore, because that's changing, and even the secular atheists are becoming right-wing assholes. So, it's not like it's not 100% that Muslims are so religious and Jews are so irreligious, but Muslims do take their religion more seriously, and they tend to be more religious, and they tend to talk about God more and follow their religion more so than Jews do. So, I mean, if it was coming down to who's pleasing God more, then yes, it would obviously be Muslims, probably. I mean, unless, well, you have to take into consideration, unless the Jews really are God's chosen people and God is keeping them because there are Orthodox rabbis spreading the Noahide laws. It could be one of those things. Well, okay, most Jews aren't really doing what's right, but the few who are doing what's right, I'm going to preserve the state of Israel so that they can continue in their work. I mean, you can also view it that way as well, right?
Yeah, and so, if you ask Orthodox Jews, so what would be your problem about living under Sharia? They wouldn't actually be saying, they're forcing us to do things that are against our religion, because their whole belief system and rules is that Jews are forbidden to enter churches, which are places of abomination where idolatry is practiced, but are allowed to pray with Muslims in mosques. This is the Orthodox view of. This is what Orthodox Jews are told about, which places of religious worship they're allowed to enter. They're not allowed to enter churches. But I think the fact is that Jewry is divided about 50-50 between secular Jews and religious Jews. And the Orthodox Jews are not. I don't think they've thought things through that carefully, because by not tackling the secular Jews, they're allowing the secular Jews to speak on behalf of all of Jewry, and by allowing secular Jews to represent Judaism and Jewry, the Orthodox Jews also get punished when everybody hates Jews because they're liberal. I think when people hate Jews, it's because they hate liberalism. But because, these people are anti-Semites, they focus on the fact that this person who's a liberal Jew is a Jew, rather than, say that the problem is liberalism. Because, the Gentile, still somehow confuses their identity with being liberal. And so they're not going to, be more critical of liberalism than they are of Jews. Because, instinctively, even if you're not a liberal, I guess as a Westerner, you're aware that, liberalism is part of Western identity. And so, they're going to believe that it was Jews who destroyed liberalism, and destroyed Christianity, or something like that, rather than take responsibility for the fact that Christianity was a religion that was going to fail because its methods of enforcement were so totalitarian and draconian that the founding fathers basically rejected it. So because obviously they thought, well, we're not going to be a kingdom in America. We're not going to allow some mad King George III to tell us what to do. We can do it on our own, and we're going to be a republic because all these kings are stupid and mad and inbred and whatever. And I mean, I think that was really the basis of the American Republic. And if you have a republic, then the pool of political talent is automatically much bigger than the royal families that represent monarchy. And so you will have better leaders because you're recruiting your next national leader from a bigger pool of political talent. And it seems obvious to me that this is what you should do if you want to have good leaders. You're not going to trust some royal family to rule over you, and they're so entitled, and they think they're just going to inherit the throne by pretending to believe in God. And anyway, it's failed. Christendom is over and out. There is no more. I mean, Europe is no longer a continent of Christian kingdoms, and this is what Christendom actually means. It's an abbreviation for Christian kingdoms of Europe. And modern history has been about rejecting it. And it began with the American Revolution, which kick-started the French Revolution, and then the Europeans thought about it for a bit. And in 1917, there was a Russian Revolution, and we know what the Russians did to their royal family. They killed all of them. For good measure, because they didn't want any more monarchy popping up again. And I'm afraid Westerners haven't got this side of their history. They don't even know that the last 250 years has been, all these Europeans being made sick by their religion and political system that hasn't even, that's been failing for 500 years.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's their own fault for accepting a religion that was disjointed and that Christianity came in like a lion and went out like a lamb. I mean, if you're going to come in and be all an asshole to everybody, well, then you better maintain that and you better get rid of all of your enemies. And you better not let anyone live, and you better not get soft, because people are going to want revenge and they're going to get it. So if you're going to go in and you're going to come in all tough, stay tough. Don't get soft, because, and that's the problem with Christianity. It came in Old Testament, they were, these were old people, old lifestyle, warrior kings, warrior people. They read the Old Testament and they liked it. But then the problem is that New Testament, that Old Testament is not really in place anymore. It's the New Testament that's in place. And the New Testament's laws are just love. Love God and love your neighbor. That's it. And you're not going to be able to keep up your brutal empire with love.
Well, I mean, the New Testament is actually low status scripture because, while the Torah and the Quran are claimed by Jews and Muslims to be the directly revealed word of God, the New Testament admits that it's only the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, all these mortal and fallible men. So in terms of their scripture, it's a lower status scripture than, the Torah or the Quran. And all these Jews and all these Muslims, they won't talk about these things because they're still afraid of the might of the American empire, I guess.
I know, but but you know what? Like, this is what I always tell people, and this was my problem with the Hindus. The Hindus were always so cowardly and scared to say things. Oh my God. And they were always like, oh, but our enemies have money. Our money, everything was about money with them. And the thing is that what Muslims and Hindus and Jews do not understand is that the power of conviction can get you over money. It can get you over governments. It can get you over everything. And Christians as weak as they do understand the power of conviction. I always used to tell Hindus, if I took one 90-year-old Christian in a wheelchair and dumped her in India, she would have 5,000 converts before she died. You take 100 Indians with $1 billion and put them in America and ask them to convert people to Hinduism, they wouldn't get one convert, because they don't have they don't have zeal, they don't have oomph, they don't have that drive, and Christians really do have that drive, and Christians are known to stand up against governments and to fight governments. Like, I always talk about Christian Science. I'm sorry, Christian Science fought like a wounded tiger to get those religious exemptions in place so that they can medically neglect their children to death. They fought for that. That's harder than saying it's harder to kill your own child, to get it legally legal to kill your own child, than to say that the Trinity is idolatry, but Muslims are just cowardly, sniveling, useless people.
Yeah. So that is why belief is important, because you know that these Muslims who won't talk about these things, they're not scared of God or the afterlife and all that crap, because even the Quran says hypocrites are cursed by God and their final destination is hell. And if they won't talk about these things, it means that they're not scared of God, they're scared of the American empire, and they're no better than than the liberals that they condemn, or the the weak white nationalists who can't put a chain of reasoning together and make arguments. They're no better because they're not prepared to take the risk. And again, the whole point of these religions that promise a good afterlife is that some of you will be required to kill to get yourselves killed in defense of the greater good, or the good of the group, the continuing existence of the group. And if you're all afraid of dying and you're going to run away when you see a more powerful enemy, then you won't be in existence for much longer.
No, I mean, we can't. Yeah, I mean, none of these options are good. None of them are brave. None of them actually believe in anything. I mean, if I have to say, I mean, like, I am glad I wasn't raised a mainstream Christian. Like, I am glad I was raised Jehovah's Witness, and that even though it was horrible, it taught me a tiny small group of people can really, if they have a burning in their belly and in their heart, they can really get something done, and they can really destroy governments. Jehovah's Witnesses made it, you don't have to salute the flag anymore. Jehovah's Witnesses made it so you don't have to go to war if you're a conscientious objector. They changed the law. Jehovah's Witnesses are known for changing the law and bucking society and saying to everyone, fuck you, and winning. And winning. Not, oh, God, the government, the people, the church, we can't. This will happen to us. You know what I mean? No, they're not like that. They die for their convictions. They let in other countries they let themselves be executed or thrown in prison.
Yes. So there we have the purpose of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, no, it's just that, but these cults teach you something. Cults teach you that small groups of people with conviction can do way more than millions of people with no conviction. Jehovah's Witnesses have sacrificed more than Muslims have. Jehovah's Witnesses have fought against the system more than Muslims have. Muslims are mainstream people with mainstream temperaments, mainstream personalities, and that means weak, pathetic, scared, cowardly, useless, dumb, ugly. That's what that means. Mainstream means that.
Yes. Oh, before I forget, I have two stories to tell you. Small numbers and they get things done. The two verses in the Quran, chapter 865 and 866. And, this should be something, Muslims, would talk about, but they don't. Maybe because they don't even read their own holy book. You've got a copy of the Quran, don't you?
Yes, I do. It's a bad copy. It's an annoying copy, but yes.
Oh, how is it bad?
Oh, it's not bad. The copy's not bad. It's just that when you read it every 5 seconds, you're going to hell if you don't believe this. You're going to hell if you don't believe this.
Oh, do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to read it right now. But it was just every 5 seconds I was reading it. I was reading it with you. Everything was. It was page after page of curses and curses and curses and curses.
Oh, right. I guess we read it with two different objectives in mind. I mean, I basically ignored all the stories. Okay, I took on board the stories, but I was just looking for the rules. So secular Quranism ignores the stories and the threats and promises of God, and it only concentrates on the stories. And the second story I was going to, oh yes, I mentioned yesterday that I met Paul van der Klee, and we had an interesting exchange on Jews and beliefs, because I was, for some reason we were talking about how the Jews, when they were, in their 40 years of wandering, they didn't even have to ask themselves whether God existed, because he was just there with them the whole time. And the Shekinah, I think it's called, this idea that God was just with them, and he said the manna from heaven, but they complained about the food, and they were just really annoying, asking all kinds of questions, wanting to be reassured. And Paul van der Klee said, it's not that these people didn't believe in God. They just did, well, they weren't sure if God would show up again the next time when they were in trouble. And that made quite an impression on me. But the thing is, if you believed in the whole thing properly, you would think, oh well, God exists, and therefore He will reward good and punish evil in this life or the next. So I have to do the right thing in order to go to the better place. I mean, that is what belief in God is supposed to do for you. And I regret not pressing him on that a bit more, but that was a conversation I had with him.
Well, what the fuck is he going to do? I mean, we were talking about him being this Calvinist. He's not. Calvinists are not warriors. Calvinists are not like. And again, it's this Carol Balizet thing, like retreat from the system and become holy in yourself and become a like a righteous man. And that's not how you win. I mean, okay, you have to do that, but on top of that, you have to organize and take over the government. You have to actually do something. It's more than just studying the Bible on your own and going to the gym. You have to do way more than that. You have to organize, and you have to organize for the power, for the purpose of changing government. You can't just do like Carol Balizet says, where it's like, well, leave Caesar's things to Caesar and just drop out of the government and become a good person, like MGTOW. You know what I mean? Like I'm so glad that they do that now. I used to hate it because I wanted white men to do better and things like that. But yeah, good. Go do MGTOW. Drop out of the dating scene. Don't get married. Don't have children. Don't be with a woman. Don't socialize with women. Don't understand how they think so that you can get better at it. Just drop the fuck out. You know what I mean? Good. But these Calvinists are going to do the same thing. I mean, like drop out of mainstream society and focus on reading the Bible. You have to do more than read the Bible. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, they talk about the Benedict option again. It's like
what's the Benedict
you
option?
mean more white flight, and somebody said, oh well, that's the more uncomplimentary aspect of this idea of retreat. Because I mean, people sell holidays to retreats now, don't they? This is a spiritual retreat, for if the world gets too much for you and all that sort of crap. But it just means running away, which is unsustainable, because the more you run away, the more they come forward.
No, it used to drive me crazy. Fine. You think Christianity is the end? Look, let me tell you something. White men never make the right decision. Even when they get power, it's not the right decision because it's not lasting power, and they've created a problem for themselves. Like they say, every revolution carries the seeds of its own destruction. Well, when white man took over the world, he implanted all around everywhere, not only by his own deeds but by his own thinking, the seeds for his own destruction. He basically, then he made it worse because he just Of course, they went around the world, fucked everyone over, and then created a weak system to sustain themselves so that everyone can just get revenge. And now their answer is more Christianity, more Christianity or shit posting, and more Christianity or nonsense and nonsense. Actually, a lot of them are into both. Actually, most of them are into both. These Christian right wing men, they're not Christians. They're not religious men. They're not holy men. They're not. They're not like into sanctity and things like that. I mean, real men who are real Christians that go to Sunday, that go to service every Sunday, that read the Bible every day, that have deep religious understanding of things, don't behave like those men behave. They're more mild mannered. They're more appropriate. They're more serious. They're more stable. They have good jobs. They're married. They have children. They don't shit post on the internet all day. And when they do go on the internet, they don't post nonsense, and they actually talk about God. They actually talk about the Bible. They actually talk about theology. They want to talk about, what does this scripture mean? How does this scripture relate to this? And that's not what these men want to talk about. What does Paul Vanderklay talk about?
Well, nothing much. He's just this fatherly figure. He's very patient. He smiles a lot. And, he's an intelligent man, and intelligent people can talk a long time about nothing in particular, and throw in a few words in so people think, oh, he understands our concerns, even though he never proposes solutions. And it's the hypocrisy of it. It's like, well, if you really believe in God, surely you should be worried about your idolatry and blasphemy, right? I mean, if you really did believe, then you would worry, and you're not just using your Christianity as lifetime membership to being white and middle class. You would be mortally afraid, but they're not. So they're just hypocrites. And the others just want to not talk about the Trinity, because I know, he actually refuses to talk about the Trinity.
Who is this asshole that you made me go view yesterday and went on his show? His name on Twitter is Go Gotten, but it says for Go Gotan.
Well, I'm afraid it was a very long stream. I haven't even found out where it was, but somebody was talking about the no height laws. And
Yes,
somebody was talking, and I was so excited, and then it just went on and on. I wouldn't even know where to find it now.
I went in there and I started talking to them, and
Oh, wow.
this guy, he's another. Everything has a fail and weakness with these people. So all he talks about is, he was talking about, and I see on his thing, it's the same thing: Masonry, Albert Pike, Zionism, the ties between Zionism and Masonry, and all this other kind of stuff. And but he's not into war. Okay, he's not into war. Like, we were talking about, like, is it appropriate to kill children in war? And I said yes, and I got thrown off the stream because that was just like, like, I got thrown off the stream. How do you suggest winning a war? Because the Jewish way of doing it is annihilating the entire
Yeah, the
civilization.
Amalek, they're supposed to kill the children and the women as well, right?
Yeah, that's the way you win a war. You don't win a war by just bombing military bases, because those can be rebuilt. You can't rebuild women and children. You can't bring them back.
But I mean, the Amalek are supposed to be a special group. I mean, the most evil group of Gentiles, and they're religiously obliged to exterminate them. But if you ask them, it's like, is Amalek just anybody whom you think of as an anti-Semite? And they can't answer the question either. And then some rabbis say, oh, they've become extinct since the time of King David. So they haven't even agreed whether Amalek is still around.
Yeah, but take that principle. Look, yeah, I mean, I've always told people that, yeah, I think that, yeah, if you have an enemy, just go after the whole thing. And then they started getting, not all Muslims are the same. That's the other thing about the Jewish. In you Gentiles, he said, you cannot, if you have an enemy, you cannot look at individuals. You cannot say, well, these Muslims are good, but these Muslims are bad. Blah, blah, blah. No, you'll lose. Just get rid of all of it. Fuck the ones that aren't that bad. They're all bad. They all claim the name. They all feed the system in some way, shape, or form, even if some of them have conflicting beliefs and things like that. Get rid of them all. And these people will never do the thing. And even these alt-right men, you ever notice all of them, when it really, 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 they all say the same things. I don't hate all homosexuals. I just hate the ones that are like this. But there's gay people that I'm okay with. You're never going to get rid of homosexuality if that's the way you think. That, and all of them make that exception. Well, there's some gays that I'm okay with. They all make that exception. You'll never win.
Well, I mean, you can win by saying, well, it will have to be made into a sexual offence, but even if you're gay, nobody's going to come after you if you don't get caught cottaging, which is the thing that triggers the offence in it, in the Quran anyway. Because, I mean, the offence is stated as committing a lewd act, between a man and another man. And that's that is the element of the offence. It's not just sort of being gay or whatever that means. You actually have to be caught doing something. So I mean, there's a lot of room for manoeuvre. Because of the legalistic terms in which the Quran is framed. So that would be how. I mean, okay, I'm saying it's fair enough. It can accommodate everyone if they're going to be reasonable, but not if they're going to say, oh, but I don't want to give up my status as an unmarried parent and be considered lower than married parents. It's like, well, that's what you'd have to do if you want to fix a problem. Nobody's saying that everybody's got to be perfect, but these are the things that you'd have to believe to agree to the system.
Yeah, I mean, but no, like, look, in Orthodox Jewish communities, they don't tolerate shit, or at least they didn't used to. I don't know what's going on there now, but and there's still sections of them they don't tolerate nonsense. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses don't tolerate nonsense, and they have a much higher in-group cohesion. And they're actually, even though they don't believe in military, even though they don't believe in voting, even though they don't believe in affecting the government, I would assert that Jehovah's Witnesses have more in-group cohesion and can accomplish more in society than the dissident right, who don't really have very strong values and make concessions for homosexuals, for Muslims, for women, they make concessions.
Yeah, and the thing is, they don't even have any rules at all. They only connect with each other. It's like, do you hate the Jews as much as I do, or do you hate the Muslims more? And don't you hate X group and Y group and Z group, and that's how they reach out to each other. It's all about, do you hate the things I do? And if so, then you're one of me. Then you're one of us. And that is not a way to build a movement, because what you hate today you might love tomorrow, or vice versa.
Yeah,
or your comrades anyway, you might think they're the best person until you disagree with them about something or other.
it's based on who you hate, and it's not an ideology, and that's the thing. Well, I learned from the Jews that just make a set of rules. Even if you don't have a belief system, make a set of rules that people have to follow, and make it so that it affects society in a certain way and creates a certain kind of society, and that people can actually look at your rules and say, okay, this would affect society in this way, and that's what I want. How what did Hitler do to the German Workers' Party, or whatever it was called, when before it was the Nazi Party, when he was sent in as a spy to work or to spy on them by the government? What did he do that actually formalized the group? He gave them a 25-point plan, right? He made 25 points and said, this is what we believe in.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that. I thought, well, if you read Mein Kampf, he said, I had a bit of a think about what political party I had to join, and I thought, well, it had to be the workers because the middle classes were so bloody useless. That's what I remember from my reading of Mein Kampf.
Okay, the 25 points of Hitler's Nazi Party, but he came up with that 25 points when National Socialist German Workers' Party. He came up with that 25-point plan when he first infiltrated let me see if I can find the name of the party that he infiltrated. Hitler presented the program at the beer hall in Munich, Germany. Okay. Anyway, that's how he organized them. That's what got them going. He came in and systematized it. These men, not only they can't systematize, they don't have a coherent universal belief system among them. They don't want to systematize. They don't want to be serious, Claire.
No, I know. They just want to LARP. They want to pretend they're doing something, but not really do anything. They don't even talk to each other. In the, it, they just want to be, left alone to agree with each other and kick out the people that might stumble, into their group and feel superior because they managed to expel some, individual. They're not intellectuals, and if they were, they would want to reason their way through to the solution, because all they care about is, I want to maintain my status as leader of the group, and if I say X, Y, or Z, I'm going to forfeit my popularity and support for, but by these people, because I know that if I promote secular Quranism, they're going to hate it, and then I'm going to lose subscribers and viewers, and, that's how they think. They think in a very short-term way.
They think yes, and well, but the thing is, like they always tell me, like they're always like, even they always tell me, I'm like, well, I don't get that many subscribers, I don't get that many viewers, and things like that, and they're like, well, you need to add this shit and that shit, and they were like, well, your system will do so much better if you add all this voodoo to it, literally, and
Well, what do you mean by voodoo? A
well,
voodoo?
they're like your system has no spirituality. You need to add some weird deranged like ideology in there, like Carol Balizet. I would get honestly with actually I did get a somebody did post on my I posted an article on Carol Balizet on my Facebook, and someone said there's plenty of Christian faith healers and they do really well. Carol Balizet just gives them a bad name. Like they would fall for Carol Balizet more than me. I mean that there are in the alt right. If I gave them my program and hers, she would have a lot more followers.
I think the people who find these cults appealing is that they just want to be part of a tribe, and they want to know their leader, and they want their leader to know their names and they speak of them in a way that shows they know them and stuff, and that is worth paying the price for. That they just want to feel that somebody who's in charge knows them as individuals and will look after them, or promises to, and that is what gives them spiritual comfort. Well, some national leader who's prime minister or president is just not going to do it.
I mean, but that's the thing is that these men in the dissident right are not going to listen to anything intellectual. And as soon as you did bring it up on your stream, like Stephen J. James wouldn't even let me take 3 minutes, not even 3 minutes of his time to explain very quickly why the earth is round and not flat, because he felt as though it would lose him viewers.
Yeah, because he's monetized now, right? So he has different considerations.
Well, the point is that he knew very well that if I showed any diagram or any graph or any calculation on his stream, that people would turn off. He just, people, the alt-right will just disconnect if you talk about anything except for trash and trash talk and blood sports. And these types of things, they'll just stop listening to you, like they stopped listening to me because I stopped bringing assholes on my channel to talk about nonsense, and I actually started talking about things that mattered, and I lost all my friends.
Yeah, but I mean
that would happen to each other. Go into their chat groups, like all of their retorts are 3 words. They don't write anything more than 5-word sentences. They never talk about anything of any substance. It's all troll after troll after troll after joke after joke after joke after meme after gif. You know what I mean? And talking in gifs. There's no like real talking. Everything is a picture. You know, it's just like these people are useless.
Yeah, and I'm afraid, Stephen J. James panders to these people, and he wants to keep the monetization, and he wants to get more viewers. I mean, he will occasionally indulge a bit of theology and politics, but the tone he takes towards us, like, oh, you're boring the viewers now, you're boring these people who hate you talking about whatever we're known for talking about. But that's his thing. I mean, like, I'm a regular guy, and I'm not going to think too hard about it. I still believe in America. This is the attitude that Joel Davis. Do you know him?
No.
Well, anyway, he's this Australian anti-Semite, and he's still a neocon. I mean, he hates Jews and everything, but he's wanting to be under the American imperium, as is Richard Spencer, because I think that they've worked out that if you want to be part of the mainstream political establishment, you have to support neoliberalism and neoconservatism, and you have to be okay with feminism and gay rights, and that's those would be the 5 pillars of it doesn't even have a name. Our unofficial moral system.
Well, they're not going to get anywhere without their point. And the other thing about them is that I always bring this up to them. The right cannot unite without a centralized, authoritative figure who forces them to all do something. They cannot unite. The left naturally unites, and the left naturally is all on the same page. And also the thing about the left, which each leftist is a leader. Each leftist goes out there and does their own protests. Each leftist writes their own blog. Each leftist does their own special thing that they worry about. Each leftist, and their memes are more serious, more cogent, more, factual, more, even when they are just memeing and shit posting, it's a little bit deeper and has an ideological context to it that's congruent and understanding, and that they all agree on, because if that they all agree on. Each leftist is a leader. Each leftist is a little Hitler.
Well, I mean, they at least agree that they want to stay mainstream, and that is what makes it work for them, because they know that that the political establishment backs them. But the dissident right are even worse. It's sort of, they know they need a leader, but they don't want to be put through the inconvenience of obeying their leader. So they actually prefer to be in their own little echo chambers and keep their viewers and subscribers and not go anywhere far. And they don't want a leader, or they don't even want to be leader, because if you're leader, then you're going to come to the notice of the security services, and they're going to target you. So they don't want that, and they don't want to be put through the inconvenience of having to support a leader whom they will expect to betray them sooner or later. Because it's happened so many times before.
They're not willing. First of all, they're not willing to sacrifice. Number 2, they're not willing to be smart. And you can be a leader, and not get arrested, and you can say things and not get arrested. There's a way to go about things. There's a way to write things. There's plenty of writers and plenty of leaders who are out there that don't get arrested or harassed by the FBI, because no, they're not. They're not. Like, what's his name? The Jews said, I read an article about Gypsy Crusader, and they were like, the Jews contacted the FBI about him, because they said he was willing to go out to protest, so they felt as though he was actually a real threat, because he had real world presence. But Gypsy Crusader look, if Gypsy Crusader was like, okay, hi everyone, I do believe in racial differences, and I am interested in preserving the white race. I don't necessarily want to hurt anyone else, but I do believe in running our own eugenics program and blah 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 blah. And he was all sophisticated about it. No, the cops wouldn't be all over him, and he wouldn't be in jail. You know, if you're like, and this and that, let me put on my blackface and talk to 12-year-olds, like, yeah, you are going to get in trouble if you do that. And that's the best of their leaders that they can put forward. Like, Gypsy Crusader is the best that they could do.
And he's not even using his real name.
And he's not even white.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
He's Turkish and Gypsy, or he's three things. He's Gypsy. I think he's Gypsy, Turkish, and white.
You know, I think the reason why Western women basically want to have more immigration is because they want to replace their own men because they hate them so much. They want their own men of their own race to be replaced.
Yeah, well, because and the other men are much more savvy. Muslim men are smoother. Like, even though they're just as misogynistic, I feel as though they're classier about it. It's more like Allah wants women to be submissive, not bitch, get in the kitchen, whoa. You know, it's like, you know, it's more classy. It's more mild mannered. It's more soft, seductive. You know,
And backed by God.
yeah, and backed by God, and don't you want, you know, and oh, a chaste and moral woman is so much more attractive than a woman, you know. And they don't use words like hoe and slut. They use like immoral woman, or, you know, woman. You know, it's just a lot more. It's a soft kill, and women would prefer that, and women fall for that. Women fall for that because women fall for oppression. I'm sorry, like, I really admire women for a lot of reasons, but one of my biggest problems with women is that they accept and tolerate abuse upon abuse upon abuse, and they don't fight back. And if a woman was in charge, the whole society would just take on so many burdens and accept so many horrible burdens on itself that it would be crushed. A man is more likely to shrug off a burden and say, I'm not carrying that. I'm not tolerating that. I'm not dealing with that. Whereas a woman, you know, women stay in abusive relationships, and it's a lot of it is just because that's their nature. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they're more tolerant. They're more tolerant and more accepting, and, you know, oh, he can change. He can change. Get out of the relationship. Stop abusing yourself. But when they become, they just tolerate abuse after abuse after abuse after abuse.
Yes, but I think men in a way sort of know that they're going to have to suffer too. It's sort of like, well, I have to join this political movement and it's got a good leader, but the leader will probably oppress me and make me do things that I don't want to do, and I have to follow orders if I want to remain in it. And, you know, I guess at the back of our minds, we sort of expect to suffer, and we think, you know, maybe we think, what I'm suffering is better than the other kind of suffering that I could suffer if I do things a different way. I suppose that is, you know, really what's keeping everybody doing the same thing that they kind of know is not the right thing. Or maybe people just don't know, that's why they stay paralyzed by their fear of change, because they don't know what to do. So they just stay in their lane, I guess, and keep walking because they don't know what to do. Because nobody has told them in a way they can understand what the hell it is they're supposed to do. Hell, they don't even know if they're men or women. And that's why they don't know how to behave, particularly the men. They think they're children or they're women. And that's why their women hate them so much. They vote for more immigration. And the only way that men can grow up is to say, well, I'm a father now because I'm looking after my children and I have to support them. You know, that is being grown up. Otherwise, I guess you'll just spend, you know, the rest of your life indulging in childish things. I think there's a verse in the Bible, isn't it? The time has come to put aside childish things. Something like that. And yes, I guess thinking hurts the heads of too many people. And what I'm saying is that, this system that I was talking about with all these wheels but with no teeth because they've all been, knocked off or something, they're all spinning uselessly, independently, and without connecting with each other because of the social and moral system we have. We don't have this pyramid system that's supposed to be stable. I mean, the pyramid system is basically the military system. You have a general and he gives orders, and then the orders are supposed to be passed on and performed, and the moment somebody doesn't pass them on properly or doesn't perform them, you immediately know where the problem is. But what we have now, through our indiscriminate universal suffrage, is, we don't know where the buck is now, the buck that is being passed round so quickly that, you just don't know where it is, who holds it. So there will never be accountability. You can never track down the person who's making all the wrong decisions, because by the time you find out who it was, they'll have moved on or be dead, and somebody else is doing, is committing a new mistake. But this is, a feature of democracy and matriarchy. I mean, democracy would only work if most voters were wise. And we know that they are the antithesis of wisdom. And nobody will admit it. It's like democracy is still our idol. Feminism is still our idol. Christianity is still our idol. Because nobody will actually say, these are the things that are destroying us. Okay, maybe once upon a time it helped us, the Christian empires who were global, but it's coming to an end, and nobody can make any sense of it other than to say something went wrong. If God exists, he would curse all these Christians for their idolatry and blasphemy, and also curse the Jews and Muslims who refuse to point it out to the Christians. I mean, that is simple enough for most people to understand.
Yeah, none of these things are gonna go. Hold on 1 second. I just need to see something. Give me 1 second. I'm just looking up something.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see something. Okay, actually. Okay, good. Never mind.
Well, I find our conversations helpful anyway, because you're actually engaging with what I'm saying, and you understand it and you build on it. Unlike the people who, you're saying something I don't like, you better go now.
Yeah, no, I don't generally cut people off. The only time I cut people off is if they can't understand my argument and they're coming with me at nonsense, like that guy Gerlat, whatever his name. You know who Gerlat is?
It rings a bell. Somebody on Twitter?
Somebody on Telegram, Gerlat.
Oh, and, yeah, I never go there because it's so depressing.
Yeah, his name is Gerlat, and he's just an idiot. And I talk about something and he comes back and he doesn't even understand what I said, and his response is just utter fucking nonsense, and it's the opposite of what I was talking about. So, I kind of have.
Well, I think you should go on Spaces a bit more, because
Well, I'm on now.
Yeah, because I'm really looking forward to that 8-hour one that you were on. So you were actually on it. So that's
for a short
great.
period of time, but I got thrown off after 3 minutes for talking about war and killing children in war. Let me go use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Okay. yeah, I think it's the one called Everything Important. And, well, it's nearly 9 hours, 8 hours, 40 minutes. But 376 people tuned in. And I'm sure, I can check if Vincent acquired more followers. Well, he's got 6. He's got 6 at the moment.
Actually, I just wanted to look last at well, she was saying commercial and banking. So you have at least you have some kind of plan for banking, because you're gonna get rid of interest rates and
Yes, and fractional reserve banking.
fractional reserve banking. What she has to say. I was looking at it a little bit. Okay, commerce and banking. God provides for everything, so she has a little bit of that nonsense. Not relying on the world for what you need. Ridiculous. She was word of name it and claim it Pentecostal, meaning that, like, word of God, like, name it and claim it, meaning if you just say it out loud, you'll get it. And I've read people who said that what's it called? They're like, I'm surprised she didn't advocate just going outside and praying for your house and food to arrive. You know what I mean?
But this reminds me of, I think it was in the Beatitudes, like, ask and it shall be given, knock and the door shall be open, that sort of thing, in Sermon on the Mount. Is it? I imagine that would ring a bell.
Well, I don't know what you just said, but I'm just looking through this, and it seems like she's, be content, get out of debt. Let's see if there's anything about interest. Stop using driver's license.
Okay, the verse I'm thinking of, that what you said made me think of a verse, and it is this Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 to 8, and it says, ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. So the idea is, like, it's already there. What you want is already there, but you're just too stupid to know it. And I can't even remember what you said that made me think of it now.
She does talk about lending money at interest, but she's okay. It seems as though she's okay with it, because she says, how high can the interest go before it becomes usury? So
that's Calvinistic, isn't it? Because Calvin was the one who said it's okay to lend on interest, but particularly, if it's a low rate. That was why Calvin was so popular. I mean, why else? I mean, he has such a gloomy worldview that you think, why would anyone even go for his stuff, until you realise that he was the theologian who said usury is okay. Or it's not usury if you charge a low rate of interest. And that is another important aspect of Christianity that Christians don't know about. I mean, I didn't realise about, that was the role of Calvin until, well, a few years ago. Because Martin Luther was adamant that Christians must not practice usury. But I mean, it has taken, all these centuries for the effect of usury to play out. And obviously, usury is bad because we know Jews are not supposed to practice it on each other. We know it is bad because it creates income inequality, and it obviously makes it, the poor hate the rich. And this is obviously happening now. That there are some people so far above us that you know they regard us as ants in terms of our income. And that's why they think they can buy our politicians and make them do anything, and our politicians will continue obeying their orders as long as they're, getting what they want from these, super billionaires.
It seems like she was against donating blood. There's things about that remind her of Jehovah's Witnesses. No blood transfusion, calling God Jehovah, dropping out of the system, only having to follow the government, but only to the point that up to the point where they ask you to do something God told you not to do. Yeah. Um, yeah, she does remind me of a Jehovah's Witness in some ways, and
I mean, she's obviously had a look at all the other, fringe groups of Christianity, and amalgamated the beliefs of what Pentecostalism and Seventh Day Adventism and all the others, and she's just given us her pick and mix list of Christianity. I mean, she still identifies as Christian, doesn't she?
yes,
Yeah, so she's using the brand of Jesus to give herself moral authority. I mean, cult leaders instinctively sense it. It's like, well, people are not going to just agree with me just because I speak the truth. I have to invoke something more than, little old me.
yeah,
I mean that was the reason for the divine right of kings. Obviously, in pre-Christian Europe, they obviously had their own, pagan gods and, whatever. And I guess what the Catholic Church did was to say to these barbarian kings, like, well, you could be running your country a bit better with our religion, from the eternal city of Rome where your conquerors used to come from. And I guess, one by one, all these barbarian kings of Europe accepted the bargain of the Catholic Church and Christianized themselves. But I mean, if you look at the history of the Catholic Church, I mean, it was really oppressive. I mean, like William Tyndale, I mean, all he did was translate the Bible, so that English people could read it in their own language, and he was burnt at the stake by Henry VIII.
yeah,
It's really sinister. I mean, forget all the bad things they did to Jews and Muslims. What do they do to each other? I'm sure the numbers of Christians who killed each other over some, theological dispute that we don't care about, far exceeded the numbers of Jews and Muslims they killed. I mean, do you know anything about the Anabaptists?
not much. I know that not much.
Well, I guess they would be I mean, they'd be the ancestors of, the Baptists, and Baptists are basically people who say, well, it doesn't count. Infant baptism doesn't count because, as infants, we didn't know what we were getting when our parents christened us. And, we need to know what it's really all about, this Christianity thing and Trinity and whatever. And I think the confirmation ceremony for Catholics and Anglicans is a nod to those people, because those people who said, well, we'd like to be baptized when we're old enough to understand what the hell is going on about the Trinity and everything, and they were basically burned at the stake, and Anabaptists were the people. Okay, it means baptized again. And so they were laughed at for wanting to be baptized again. And it was only in the last few years that I discovered the difference between pedo baptism and creedal baptism. So the creedal baptism is like you know what you're getting yourself into when you say you're Christian. But really, these are imitations of Jewish rituals. So you can look at baptism as the Christian form of male circumcision, and the confirmation ceremony as their bar mitzvah. I mean, there are so many, rituals that have been, culturally appropriated from the Jews, and that, so historically, Christians weren't even supposed to question anything about the Trinity, because it can't be explained in a way that makes Christianity respectable. So the only resort that the government could make was to execute people who questioned anything about Christianity. So the Orthodox Church, they decided not to bother with this confirmation ceremony thing. So they just baptized the baby. They dunk it in the baptismal font, and then wrap its legs up in myrrh and whatever, and say this is the one ceremony process for the Orthodox Church, and you don't have to bother about your teenage son or daughter asking you what the hell the Trinity is all about. Yeah, they're still Christian, even though they weren't asked about it. And more recently, I discovered someone European saying, "Oh, I didn't. For some reason, you're just automatically registered as Lutheran if you're Dutch or Danish or something." Swedish, I think. I mean, because the idea is that all the subjects of the mod. That's why this person that I was telling you about was complaining about being registered as a Lutheran because this person didn't agree with being Christian at all. But I guess in the olden days you would have been burnt at the stake.
Yeah.
But the modern Christian doesn't get that, because all these interesting historical facts have been hidden from them by the church and the government, presumably.
I mean, I just can't believe people are just so stupid and immoral that this is the system that they created.
And they want it to carry on. They want to return to to their folly. I mean, this is verse in the Old Testament. How does it go? Like a dog returning to its vomit, the fool returns to his folly. And that's what they want. They want to turn back time. I mean, they can't even sort of think straight, but they think they can invent this time machine and turn back time to the days when everybody was properly Christian and, denounced each other as blasphemers and heretics, burnt each other at the stake and went on crusades. I mean, I'm sure they love the idea of slaying Jews and Muslims in the Levant. That's why they call themselves a Knights Templar and all that. They just want to go back to doing that again.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is so sinister is that no educated person is going to talk about this.
Yeah. Ooh, wait. Did I find her grave? Oh, I think this is her. Oh no, Denver, Colorado. No, this isn't her. No, this isn't her. Never mind. I thought I found her grave.
Do you know where she died?
Probably in Florida. That's where she was last. Claire, you should make a pilgrimage.
Well, I was saying you should. I know you went to Florida on one of your holidays in the last few years, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Claire, I'm gonna go because I have to get some things done.
Yes, so do I. Thank you for inviting me. I think we managed to cover a lot of subjects, and I think we were being reasonably coherent, weren't we? Or I thought you understood what I was trying to say.
Yeah, nobody's going to watch this because it is coherent and it's not nonsense. So.
Okay, then. Thanks, Vincent, for asking me. Take care. Bye.